The first school in the American education system is preschool. Children in preschool are under the age of 5. Most children enter preschool for 1 year when they turn 4. However, some children, like myself, start preschool at age 3 and are there for 2 years. During this time, children learn through play and also learn basic skills, such as the alphabet and counting. These skills are learned during preschool so that they can be built upon later on in children's school careers. After preschool is elementary school. Children spend about 6 years here, starting at kindergarten and going until 5th grade. Curriculum during these grades are typically determined by Common Core. Common Core are standards that dictate what students should have learned in English, language arts, and mathematics by the end of the school year. Since 41 out of the 50 states, 4 U.S. territories, and the District of Columbia follow it, it will be sound to generalize these standards for the curriculum. Now, standards are not the same as curriculum. However, since most of the nation have to achieve these standards, their curriculum teaches these skills. In kindergarten through 2nd grade, the skills learned are foundational skills. In English language arts, this includes understanding spoken words and rhyming sounds, describing character and plot of a story, asking and answering questions about a story, distinguishing the features of a sentence. In math, this includes learning addition, subtraction, whole numbers with an introduction to decimals, learning to measure, and learning about geometric shapes. Throughout elementary school, which is about 3rd to 5th grade, the curriculum starts to build upon those foundational skills. For English language arts, the curriculum teaches a wider range of cultural text, identifying the structure of text, and how to use context clues to define words and answer questions. By the time students reach 5th grade, they are learning longer works of text, such as chapters and stanzas, and can use grade-level phonics. In math, the curriculum centers around learning multiplication, division, fractions, area and perimeter, and more work with geometric shapes. Common Core does not cover all subjects, so social studies and science tend to be more general and are determined by the state or individual school districts. They normally focus on subjects such as history, geography, the physical sciences, and the earth sciences. Popular ways that this curriculum is taught is by showing students through demonstration, giving hands-on experiences with the assignments, and pairing students up to learn collaboratively. Traditional lectures are also used before tests. Students take standardized tests to test their knowledge, such as measures of academic progress or the state achievement test. What I've just said is followed by public schools. Since private schools are not funded by taxes but instead by other means, they do not have to follow Common Core standards if they don't want to. They can have more specialized curriculums. Also, they don't have to take all the standardized tests that public schools might be subjected to.
Once students master the required skills that are taught in elementary school, they are ready to enter middle school. Middle school or junior high, which includes grades 6 through 8, which are typically ages 11 to 14. The curriculum follows Common Core standards. In Illinois, students are required to take 7 or more subjects. These subjects include English or language arts, math, science, social studies or sciences, physical education, fine arts, and a foreign language. The most focused classes are English or language arts and math. In grade 6, students begin learning key ideas and details more thoroughly, and also enhancing their reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills in their English or language arts classes. In math classes, students focus on 4 concepts. Number 1 is connecting ratio and rate to whole number multiplication. Number 2 is understanding dividing fractions and system of rational numbers. Number 3 is writing or interpreting expression equations. And number 4 is developing statistical thinking. In grades 7 and 8, the standards are similar. Each grade level takes the skills learned from prior years and builds upon those skills more in depth. There are standardized state exams, for example, ISAT testing, and the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, also known as the PARCC test, that students are required to take in grades 3 through 12. Parents can also make the choice to enroll their child in private schools. This will be talked about at the end of the video.
High school is part 2 of secondary school. Children usually start high school at 14 years of age, taking 4 years to complete. Students graduating are usually 17 to 18 years old, where a diploma or a certificate is awarded upon graduation. Students then have the choice to attend college or a trade school. Because there isn't specific classes to be taken for each year, everyone's high school journey will be different. Standardized tests, progress reports, and previous classes taken will all take into effect and place you on a class best suited for you. 45 out of 50 states have agreed to follow the Common Core standards. This aims to create a more standardized curriculum across the United States. Sciences and social sciences aren't part of the Common Core curriculum, leaving that to states to decide. Because these standards are very broad, they don't specify what to be taken. Here's an example of what class schedules will look like along with their standards. The Common Core for math teaches these specific subjects. Algebra. Standards for algebra are: interpret the structure of expressions, write expressions in equivalent forms to solve problems, perform arithmetic operations and polynomials, solve systems of equations and inequalities in one variable, create equations that describe numbers or relationships. Functions. The standards for functions are: understand the concepts of a function and use function notation, analyze functions using different representations, build new functions from existing functions, construct and compare linear, quadratic, and exponential, model and solve problems. Modeling. Standards for modeling are best interpreted not as a collection of isolated topics, but rather in relation to other standards. Geometry. Standards for geometry: experiment with transformations in the plane, prove geometric theorems, making geometric constructions, use coordinates to prove simple geometric theorems algebraically, apply geometric concepts in modeling situations. Statistics and probability. The standards for statistics and probability summarize, represent, and interpret data on a single count or measurement variable, interpret linear models, understand independence and control conditional probability, and use them to interpret data, use probability to evaluate outcomes and decisions. Also note that most high schools require a minimum of 3 years of math to graduate. Standards for reading and language arts, grades 9 and 10. Standards for reading: cite strong and thorough textual evidence supporting analysis of what text says, as well as making inferences drawn from text, determine theme of text and its central ideas, provide objective summaries of the text. Standards for reading and language arts, grades 11 to 12. Determine 2 or more themes of central ideas and text and analyze their development over the course of text, how they interact and build on each other to provide an objective summary of text, analyze impact of author's choice, develop and relate elements of a story or drama, determining meaning of words and phrases as they are used in text, analyze impact of specific word choices and meanings of tone, analyze how author choices concerning how to structure specific parts of text, demonstrate knowledge of 18th, 19th, and 20th century foundational works of American literature. Also note, most, if all high schools require 4 years of English to graduate.
After high school, there are 2 paths that students can take if they want to continue their education. One option is going to a college or university. There are different levels of degrees that someone can get depending on how much time they spend in school. If a student spends 2 years at a university or a college, they can get an associate's degree. These degrees are normally general ones, either in an Associates of Arts or an Associates of Science. However, students can have a major area of study for their degree, such as an associate's degree for psychology. Associate's degree requires students to take general education courses, so they're taking classes in every area of study, similar to high school in a way. If the associate's is in a certain subject, then more classes are taken in that subject. The exact curriculum of a class is determined by either the school or the individual professor. Traditional lectures are a common type of instruction used in college, as well as laboratory studies for science courses. However, just like the curriculum, the exact instruction depends on the teacher. Many students go to community colleges for associate's degrees. A community college is a smaller college that focuses on the first 2 years of a college education for the intention of getting the associate's degree, transferring into a 4-year institution, or both. Students can then go on to a 4-year college or university to obtain a bachelor's degree. Regardless of whether or not students start at a community college or a 4-year college or university, the first 2 years are typically centered around completing the general education requirements mentioned before. For a bachelor's, students pick at least one major, which is a main focus of study. Many people also pick a minor, which is a secondary focus of study. Minors can either fulfill a personal interest in a subject or help specialize in the area of study. Many 4-year schools allow students to choose 2 majors or even 1 major and 2 minors. As discussed in the associate's degree, the curriculum of bachelor's courses depends on the specific school and possibly the state. Common forms of instruction are similar as well, lectures and lab components. However, just as before, different classes and different professors will use different forms of instruction. After completing a bachelor's degree, you can then complete a master's degree. This takes about 2 years typically and can be completed after obtaining a bachelor's degree. Some jobs require you to have a master's degree before you can earn them, whereas some people achieve master's degrees to either get paid more or to simply further their knowledge and skills. These degrees typically focus on one area of study. The exact curriculum is determined by the state and/or school. However, many graduate courses offer accredited programs, which means that completing that program is guaranteed to apply to any job licensure programs. The highest form of post-secondary education is a doctorate degree, or a PhD program. These degrees can take a long time, 6 to 8 years, but it represents mastering a subject once completed. Some doctorate programs don't require you to have a master's degree beforehand. However, doctorate degrees are typically completed by someone who is years into their career, so many students already have their master's. In the doctorate program, students may take courses, but also do a high level of independent work in the form of dissertations. Dissertations are essentially research papers, however the student chooses what it will focus on, create a thesis, and do the research independently with the guidance of an academic advisor. Some programs may also require field experience hours, where students either observe or practice their desired field under the watch of a professional. When it comes to private or public colleges and universities, the paths are the same. The major difference between public and private institutions is the size. Public universities are often bigger. Because of this, they tend to offer a wide array of degree options. Private colleges are often smaller in class size, which allows the college to have more specialized degrees. Private schools also typically cost more than public institutions, although that's not always the case. Whether or not the education is considered to be better at one type of school depends on the student's academic needs. And the difference between a college and university is only what degrees are offered. Colleges have only undergraduate degrees, so associates and bachelor's, while universities have both undergraduate and graduate degrees. If a student does not want to go to college, they can go to trade school. This takes about 2 years to complete. Essentially, a trade school is skipping the first 2 years of general education courses and diving straight into field-related skills and knowledge. Not every job can be achieved from trade school, only, as you would assume, the trades. These schools are typically private institutions, but there are a few public ones throughout the nation. Earlier we mentioned the difference between public and private schools within the education system, but now we're going to talk about it in more depth. Both public and private schools have the same grades and paths for students to take. Just because a student is signed up for a private school doesn't mean they're going to skip grades or graduate early. Private schools are privately funded, which means that running the school is based off donations and the tuition that students pay. Because they're privately funded, they don't have to follow Common Core or any other state-regulated curriculums. Because of this, they can have a more specialized curriculum. Also, many private schools in America have religious affiliations, which is not normally allowed for public schools. Teachers don't have to be licensed in a private school. Also, private schools typically have smaller class sizes, which can lead to more teacher-led instructions, such as lectures. Students don't have to take the same amount of standardized tests that they do in public schools. Also, since students normally apply for a private school, Private schools can reject their students. Public schools, however, are funded by taxes. Because of this, the curriculum is determined by the state and also possibly the school district. As mentioned earlier, most of the country follows the Common Core, so for a lot of schools, this means they have to also follow the Common Core curriculum. Teachers must be licensed to teach at a public school. It is possible that they may have bigger class sizes, which can lead to a varied amount of teacher-led and student-led instruction. That means that they could use lectures, but also might rely on collaborative learning and demonstration. Students are subjected to way more standardized tests in public schools than in private. Also, public schools must accept all students from a certain area. Normally, a school district covers certain towns, and all those students must be accepted.
All of us went the public school route, which involved preschool at about age 4, then kindergarten to 5th grade, which was ages 5 to 11, then middle school or junior high from ages 11 to 14, then high school from ages 14 to 18, and then community college at age 18 until whatever age we transfer and receive our bachelor degrees.